This is Annabelle Gauberti and you are listening to Lawfully Creative, my podcast to talk with professionals in the creative industries, to hear their stories, what inspires their creation, what decisions change their careers, what relationships influence their work. Today's episode is brought to you by Crefovi, our London and Paris-based law firm focused on advising the creative industries. Subscribe to our podcast Lawfully Creative or catch up with our original shows on iTunes, Spotify, Deezer, Stitcher, YouTube, Anchor, and many more podcast aggregators and platforms. Please do leave a review and rating about our podcast to encourage others to discover our curated content. Thank you.
So I'm in Brighton and I'm sitting next to Stella Baggott, who is the founder and managing director of Atelier Stella Ceramics, located in Brighton as well. Yeah, I'm delighted to be here. It's a lovely Saturday afternoon in May in Brighton, and people are very chillaxed and hippie looking in the streets, and everybody seems to have a good time in Brighton. So, hello Stella.
Hello.
Would you like to introduce yourself to our...
Yeah, so I'm Stella. I make ceramics. Nearly all of my ceramics have faces, so they're quite easy to tell what they are. I've been making ceramics as Atelier Stella for 7 years now, although I was doing ceramics sort of as a part-time hobby before. Whilst I used to be a children's book illustrator, but now I'm pretty much full-time ceramics.
Yeah. So you started your business in 2012.
Yeah, I think it was then.
How interesting. I also founded my law firm in 2012.
Did you?
After 13 years as a senior associate in some of the largest law firms in London.
It must be a good time to have a career change.
Exactly. I think a lot of things started, but my clients, a lot of them actually started their business in around 2012.
Oh, really?
Yes,
the moons must be aligned.
Interesting.
Yeah. Well, I was doing illustration, and I was doing pottery as a night class, and I really enjoyed it. And then a friend was doing a craft fair. What was it called? A Renegade Craft Fair at Brick Lane in London.
Right.
And it was quite expensive, so she said, "Do you want to share a table and make some more ceramics?" So I thought, well, I may as well give it a go, a bit of extra money. Made an extra batch. Was hoping I would sell a few, and it went really well. I think I was the only ceramicist there, and sold loads. Had loads of people taking photographs, and then from that,
2012.
Yeah, I think it's 2012.
Were you already making the lovely?
No, I hadn't. I wasn't selling them. Yeah, I was. Yeah, pots with faces on, sort of smaller ones, some bigger ones.
Okay.
And but I wasn't selling them. I didn't have a shop, and then. After that, someone who took a photograph and she wrote about a blog post on it, and then it got picked up by other blogs, and then Design Sponge did a post about me, and then it just went crazy, so I had to open
Beginner's
a
luck.
shop. Yeah.
Awesome. Was that in 2011?
I think it was 2012. I'm not very good with dates, but I think it just happened that ceramics was really getting popular then. Everyone, it's massive now. You see it everywhere. Yeah. And also plants were become a thing. I mean, in 2012, it was really hard to buy a plant unless you went to a garden centre. And now there's plant shops everywhere. Every shop has plants.
Because I live in northwest London, and we've always been quite lucky and having a home base not too far, some gifted nurseries in Maida Vale, but perhaps when you are in East London, probably it's more difficult to find a florist
and
or a good garden centre.
Some garden centres wouldn't have that many house plants. They would have a lot of garden plants and not necessarily many house plants, where now house plants are just everywhere. You can get them anywhere. So I think that was the craft fairs I used to do. I used to sell the plants in the pots, and you bought the whole thing. So I think it was a really nice thing to buy, and there just wasn't anyone doing anything like that now.
So so would you mind just talking us through your trajectory, as I understand that, and as you just mentioned, you wrote kiddies books and illustrated kiddies book before working on your ceramics business full time. So who were you working for in the publishing industry?
Yeah, so I did a degree in graphic design at Derby University, and then quite soon after, through a friend, I got a contact of the art director at Usborne Publishing, which is based in Clerkenwell in London, and started doing a little bit of freelance work for them whilst I was working as a graphic designer in Derby. Then they asked if I wanted to do more work for them and potentially move to London to work full time, which I had, at the time I had no intention of moving to London. It was a bit scary, but I kind of went for it and went down and met them, and then ended up working full time for Usborne Publishing in-house for 14 years.
But were you still actually a consultant, or were you on their payroll?
On the payroll, and I started off doing a lot of in-house illustrations, and then ended up sort of managing other people as well as illustrating in-house. So I ended up working on 2 separate series of books, which were really good, and I really enjoyed that job, which was why I think it was hard to leave that completely in order to pursue this ceramics full time.
Although you just mentioned before the podcast started that you still do 3 or 4 books for
it's
very
hard
young children. Is that still for the same publishing house?
Yes, I've always worked for Usborne. I've done a couple of things for Korean publishers and various other publishers, but mainly for Usborne because I love them so much, and they gave me my start, and they're a great company. So I do about 4 or 5 baby books a year, and I think if you look at my baby books, you can see the faces. Like all the flowers have faces, the sun has a face, all the animals have faces. So I think you can see a slight link to my ceramics, and I think that's how I feel. And I think a lot of people say to me that because I'm not a classically trained ceramicist, my ceramics are almost like I'm illustrating in the clay, because I'm coming at it from an illustration point of view rather than coming at it as a kind of trained ceramicist. So I think a lot of people are doing that now. I think a lot of illustrators are moving into clay and
Really?
But I think a lot now. But again, I think in 2012, there wasn't that many people doing it. So I think I just lucked out and got in there first.
Beginner's luck, when you went to that's trade market and everything went like hotcakes. Beginner's luck, fantastic. When you design, or when you designed those kiddies books, were you doing that on the software or were you doing this by hand?
A variety, really. When I first started working there, we used to work on a lot of make and do books, so a lot of crafts and activities. So we would, anything from collage to paper, painting, thumb printing, making masks. It could be anything, and we would make the products and photograph them for make and do books, and then a lot of the baby books that I work on now are all done in the Illustrator program, Adobe Illustrator, on the computer. Yeah.
It's funny what you said about lots of people like yourself who are trained as designers, and then they evolve from the more intangible world, like working on Adobe Illustrator, or and then on to actually doing manual things with their hands. My designer, who actually designed the logo of my law firm Crefovi and the whole stationery of Crefovi, so the whole corporate identity of Crefovi, 5 or 6 years after, and it was really well known in the field, because I actually found his details on a book which I bought at Monocle boutique about all corporate identity, and I saw that book very often also at the Palais de Tokyo bookshop. And so he was very well known in his trade, and he was also teaching in Berlin at a Berlin designer course there in university. And he just decided to actually completely stop his business and instead renovate houses.
Oh, wow!
Like, Holger, what are you doing? So perhaps, and he said, I'm tired of working on screens all the time. I want to be able to do things with my hand. I was like, this this is crazy, but good luck.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I found another designer.
Yeah.
But so you also went through the same phase and decided also, after 14 years, if I remember well, in the illustration industry, to also use your hands more. Because, hey, ceramics is, at the end of it, it's quite a dirty job, right? You really have to dirty your hands. Although the result is outstanding. But when I did podcast with Claude Aiello, and also I visit his Atelier's workshop in Valois very often because I'm one of his clients. I buy quite a lot of ceramics from him. And as you know, it's quite a dirty business.
I think also as well, when you illustration was amazing, but when you work for a publishing company that has to sell to various companies, that you can be restricted, so you might come up with a design but then you have to change it to make it sellable, whereas when you have your own business, like with making ceramics, I can do exactly what I want, and I don't have anyone else telling me that you need to make that green, or you need to make the eyes look a bit funny. So I think for me it was having complete control was a really good thing. And people will email me now and say, I've just seen a pot that's on Pinterest that you made like 3 years ago, can you make one of those? And I'll be like, no, I don't want to make that anymore, I want to make these, so I can keep changing it very quickly, and if I'm bored with something, then I just won't do that anymore.
Fair enough. Good. And it's I think the fact that you're doing limited series means that I keep myself interested as well, but also for your legacy, because probably your items will become collectible. I think, in the next few years. So if you make limited series and also you refuse to make copies of stuff that clients ask, then it means that it's more rare, and therefore in due course it will become more sought after. I'm sure you've got some collectors out there. Already have 3. I know, actually many more, because I bought 2 at 2021, and then I probably have like 5 or 6 already at home.
Really? Yeah. Well, there's one guy, Justin, who I think has about 30 to 40 pieces. I can't even remember.
Where is he based?
He's in the UK,
But like in London?
I think he's just outside in the home counties.
Do you know, that's interesting, because whenever I look at your little planters and pots and stuff, it just makes me happy inside.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people say that. It just makes them smile.
Exactly.
And they make me smile. After 7 years of making them, they still make me smile. And I still make one, and I'm like, oh my god, I really like that one. I have to keep that one. Or
good difficulty sometimes to sell on that. I know. So I read an article on the Telegraph, no, I'm joking, on the Telegraph, where you explain how basically the fact that you had this dual activity and hence dual income from 2012 to probably 2014, or?
Yeah, I think it was 2014, I left Usborne. Yeah.
That allowed you to actually climb on the property ladder?
Yeah.
How did this come about, this article? Were you mate with the Telegraph journalist? Or how did you reach out? How did you meet her?
I think it was that my friend's husband works in PR, and they needed someone to write a piece about that kind of lifestyle, about people who had done a hobby in order to kind of like get extra money, and he thought of me and suggested me, and then they contacted me about it. Because those 2 years were good, because I managed to save a lot of money in those 2 years, but I don't think I went out, or barely. I would literally make all my stuff at home and like fire it all out. Every night I would come home from Usborne and work on the pots every weekend. It was quite intense. I think it wasn't until it finished that you realise that having a studio in your own home can really restrict your kind of life. So now here, once I moved to Brighton.
So what property did that move, by the way? Why did you decide to come here as opposed to?
I tried to buy a property in London, in Walthamstow. I tried to buy one, I think twice, and it fell through, and it just became. It was when Walthamstow prices suddenly went through the roof.
Where is
North London.
North London. Okay.
Well, E17, so it's northeast.
Okay. Frankly, I think you are perhaps better off here, because you're not too far from the town centre.
Yeah.
E17 is quite far from.
Yeah, it's sort of towards near Tottenham, so it's at the sort of on the blue line. I can't remember which one that is, but
isn't it?
It's on the Victoria line.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So it just got to a point where I'd gone from looking at a 2-bedroom garden flat to being able to afford a 1-bedroom flat with no garden, because the prices just, they were going up £1,000 a week. It was getting, ridiculous.
That was in around 2014.
I think it was, back then.
Okay.
So then I had friends in Brighton, and they said, well, why don't you come down here and just have a look?
Yeah.
So I booked a couple of viewings at flats and saw one I really liked and just put an offer in.
It's funny how things in your life happen like this by chance.
If I have time to think about it, I overthink it and will rule it out. So for me, I need things to happen just where the choice gets taken away from me. So I put this offer in on this flat thinking, I think I put in asking price, but because in London I put offers on way over asking price and hadn't got them.
Really?
Yeah.
And it fell through.
Twice.
Oh, you got gathered.
Yeah, twice. So I put an offer in this flat and asking price thinking, oh, there's no way I'm going to get that. And then they rang me on the Monday. I think they asked for more money and I said I hadn't got any.
Yeah.
And then on the Monday they said, you've got the flat. So
probably the demand here is a bit less than more offer than demand.
Yeah, and I think because I was a first-time buyer, so I think I was in a good position.
Yeah.
So,
right, no chain, you mean?
Yeah. So I think because it happened so quickly, I was just like, I think I rang my mum on the Monday and was like, looks like I'm moving to Brighton.
At this point in time, so that was in 2014, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And had you already handed over your resignation to?
No, so I had intentions to commute. So I'd.
Oh my gosh! Commuting from Brighton to London every day.
Yeah, so I tried it I think I did it for 2 months. Every day. Then I spoke to my art director and went down to 3 days a week and worked from home.
Must have been exhausting though.
1. Yeah, it's just if the trains work, if they're on time, then it's fine.
You're much better off now, right?
Yeah.
Just having to walk to your
studio, it's so much nicer now. Yeah, so I think that happened in June or July, and I think by Christmas I'd handed in my resignation and realised that
December 2015.
Yeah, I think it was. I'm terrible at remembering dates.
Okay.
So I think I lasted about sort of 5 or 6 months, and then just realised it wasn't right.
Perhaps just too much.
Yeah, and then I think I left in the May, the following year.
Okay, but it could quite some time.
Yeah.
Well, after 14 years.
Yeah, but I think I can't remember now. But I think I went down to like 2 days a week and was just not doing it.
But you were actually working from home. Oh no, right, 2 days a week where you would dedicate yourself to the illustration business.
Yeah. So I just because I just sit on my own illustrating. So a lot of the time it wasn't. I could do that from home.
Right, fair enough.
But they would like me in the office because I was also like managing other people's work.
And the other 3 days a week you were working on your ceramics, on your pots. Yes, I think so, because then I found a small studio, a shared studio in Brighton, so I was working from there, and I did that for about a year, and then I got my studio about 2 or 3 years ago. Well, if you wouldn't mind, let's talk about that, because I saw a few pictures. Just for you guys who are listening to the podcast, I attempted to visit Stella at her studio around 2 months ago, because I woke up on a Saturday morning and thought, it would be so nice to actually meet the lady who makes all these beautiful pots. And I think because I'm registered on your newsletter, I must have received, my subconscious must have worked during the night, and I probably had received a newsletter from Stella with new wares, her new latest batch of fantastic pots, and I was like, the weather is starting to be nice. Let's go. But then I attended my yoga class, and then I arrived too late because Stella had to go to a birthday party. So I haven't visited the studio of Stella, but I saw some pictures on your website and on blog and articles. It seems to be very spacious. You seem to have a particular oven and.
I wouldn't call it spacious. It feels quite cramped. I think the photographs, I just choose what to take.
Why does it feel cramped? Is it because you've got a lot of stock?
Yeah, I think it's quite a slim studio, so it's probably not dissimilar to the room we're in now. But
do you think that's not quite large?
It's probably a bit slimmer, maybe not as long, probably half. Okay. And then I have that space where I make all my work, and then I have a separate studio above it, which might look more spacious, and that's where I do all my packaging, all my emails, have all the finished stock. So I used to do everything from the kind of smaller studio, and it was just getting so that, you know, when you just, your headspace is just so crowded that you're having to put away one thing to do another. So I'd have to finish working to then package work.
So you decided to hire to rent
Yeah,
space.
so I took the one upstairs, and in a way that's quite good because that's my kind of clean space. So I just package, and I can kind of relax and do all my admin and stuff like that.
You don't work, you don't live in those premises, right? You have to have your flat.
Yes,
Well,
now I've got a house.
Fantastic.
With my partner in 5 Ways, which is a kind of like nice area.
So you sold the flats that actually made you move here.
Yeah.
So I was actually about to ask, so so you moved to Brighton because you had this fantastic real estate opportunity, but now you've actually really established your life here with your partner. And
yeah, at the time I was single, which I think made the move easy because it was just me to think about. I had friends here, good friends, so I decided to make the move. And then since moving here, a lot more of my friends have moved down, and then I met my partner, Pat, and he was from a similar kind of. He had a life in London where he worked for an accountancy firm and then moved to Brighton and became a carpenter. So we both kind of just completely. Yeah,
so similar paths where you actually sort of kind of left the corporate world to go back to more crafty.
Yeah, exactly.
Activities.
And he had a flat too, so we both sold our flats and we bought a house together now.
And so is he also a self? Because you're not a sole trader, you're actually a company owner. You have your own business now. I was reading in that article from the Telegraph that you decided to actually set up a proper limited company, a private company limited by shares after 1 or 2 years because you understood that this would be a good way to channel your revenues and pay less tax, company tax. I think the rate is 19% at the moment. So of course, compared to income tax between 20 to 40, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, because I think as well, because I have a lot of sales, and I also pay for like a lot of postage and things like that.
But
then also what I'm purchasing, I don't make as many purchases, so it ends up like.
In terms of the raw material?
Yeah.
Why don't you need any more raw material?
I think
you've got a lot of stock?
Yeah, and I think that, you know, clay goes quite a long way, and I guess, like, you know, so...
Do you know, it's interesting, because Claude Aiello, whom I interviewed last December in his workshop in Valoris, he told me that actually the material was sometimes quite expensive, so whenever he was doing some commission work for these French designers, you would include this also in the quotes. So
glazes can be very expensive.
Terracotta. I think he works mostly with terracotta, and he told me that sometimes. And also he told me that he actually dislocated his back because he was working in such a big piece for Mathieu Lehaneur. I don't know if you know Mathieu Lehaneur is really quite prominent French designer. And so for Issey Miyake, the fashion house, he was making some birth rate, basically some sculptures showing the birth rate statistics of various countries: Japan, France, the US, Mexico, and 100 kilos the pieces. So when he actually was lifting it to put it in the oven, so it can be quite.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't wheel throw work because I get a bad back and it's kind of like quite taxing. I think people don't realise when you wheel throw, the people think you're just like la la la, you know, make a pot, but it's actually really, you have to really use a lot of muscles in your, it's quite hard to do.
He does everything with, how do you call it?
Wheel throwing.
Wheel throwing. Okay. It's called, in French it's called le tour. Wheel throwing. Everything he does is with the wheel.
I think you do need to be quite strong to do that. Which is why a lot of men do wheel throws, to be honest, I think.
So you take a bit of clay. And so you don't worry with terracotta. You use clay yourself.
So we use stoneware.
Right.
Which is the sort of like stone kind of buff coloured, grey coloured clay. Whereas the terracotta is the red.
Indeed. Probably coming from Southern Europe or something.
Because most of the clay I use is from the UK.
Exactly. So it's like what? It's like pretty. I suppose it's not rigid, right? It's pretty mellow and
Yeah, so it's like a wet, squashy
exactly. It's
lump.
wet, squishy.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you just
We roll it, so we have
Yeah.
a clay roller, which is like a massive mangle kind of like rolling pin on a.
okay.
So because we used to roll everything by hand, but again that's quite hard work on your back and on your wrist.
Why do you say we? Do you have some?
Yeah, so
staff?
I have an assistant that comes in and helps me.
I was about
roll
to
the
ask
clay.
you whether you had some.
Yeah.
some
So it's just amazing just to help with all the basic kind of like start of everything. So rolling of the clay, making the basic shapes, and then I stamp and finish all the pots.
How interesting. So when you roll it, how thick usually is the?
So you roll a large sheet, which would be like kind of 80 by 40 sheet of clay, which would probably be about half a centimetre thick.
Okay.
And then we roll those sheets and let them dry a bit, and then we have moulds of tubular moulds, which we mould each piece around. Various cardboard tubes that we've collected, or we have made some like plaster mould pieces to use.
Excellent.
So they all get made into sort of basic sizes of kind of pot, to make the shape. Then it needs to be left and dried for a bit. So then we need to sponge it, usually overnight. Loosely wrapped. Okay. Then we like sponge it to make it nice and clean and neat. And then it would have like legs added on it, or arms added on it, or joining pieces together to make, ears.
And would you do all the little finishing details? So
I do. Yeah, I do all that, and I do all the faces, because it's amazing how if someone else does the face and the eyes are just slightly too far apart or slightly higher, or the nose, it can completely change the look of them, and they don't look like mine. So I finish every single one and just check everything that is, right, make all the stamps.
Quality control.
Yeah.
Oh yes, that's right. There are some stamps at the bottom.
Yeah, and then I glaze them all as well myself.
Glazing means like putting the varnish.
Yeah. So what happens is
after you put them in the oven or before?
Yeah. So we make the piece with the wet clay, and then it has to be dried till it's completely bone dry, till there's no water in it. So it has to be dried for. It could be a few days, or if the kiln is on, it obviously makes things dry a lot quicker.
What's a kiln? Sorry.
The kiln is the oven.
Okay.
So it's like within pottery terms, it's called a kiln. And
how do you spell that?
K-I-L-N.
K-I-L-N. Yeah. That's sort of oven. Is that?
Yeah. So it's just one of those, effectively a massive oven that fires up to 1200 degrees.
In the pottery world, you don't call it an oven. You call it a kiln.
Call it a kiln. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah. So they we dry them out completely, then they go in the kiln for its first firing, which is called a bisque firing.
Okay.
And that gets fired up to 1000 degrees, and all the water evaporates from the clay and it shrinks a tiny bit. So whatever you make, it won't end up that size, it'll end up smaller. So it shrinks a little bit, and then it comes out like a it's still quite fragile, but at least you can kind of like give it a bit of a knock, where when it's dry clay, it's so fragile, you could easily break it. So then at this stage it's called bisqueware, and it's kind of goes like a buffy colour. And then at that point is when you glaze it. So if I want to do the spots or the rainbows, I apply like a wax to the spots or the rainbow shapes and the noses. And then it gets hand glazed with brushed on glaze, and anywhere the wax is, the glaze won't touch.
Okay.
So it ends up with like holes in the glaze.
And the wax probably
that melts on the second firing. So then it gets fired again to 1200 degrees.
And you were saying you do that glazing yourself?
Yes, I do all the glazing myself, and then sometimes if it has gold on, that's the third firing. So then after it comes out with the shiny glaze,
so nice.
And the gold, that's the third firing.
So these pieces must be more expensive, right?
And the gold luster that gets painted on it is really expensive. It's like £30 for a tiny little vial, a pot of about 5 milligrams or something like that.
Is it the colour gold, or
it's got real gold in it?
Is it?
Yeah.
Precious. I've got a very precious. Oh yes, that's the one I bought at the Unlimited shop in Brighton in March. I couldn't see a studio, but you addressed me to your friend and dealer. Oh, right, interesting.
Yeah, so it's quite a long process. You don't really
it's
make.
very beautiful. But...
Yeah, you don't make one pot at a time. That's why you do batches, because everything needs to be dried slowly and then glazed in different stages. So that's why people call it batch ceramics when you're making things in batches.
Well, I mean, sure, you can't do. I mean, perhaps if you were commissioned, you would make one piece.
Yeah, it's just time-wise, it's just easier to
perhaps
make
not mass-produced, obviously, but at least with like limited series.
Or often, even if you're doing a one-off, you do it whilst you're doing another one-off, or you're doing 3 or 4 at a time, even though when they're created, they're actually all different.
So thank you so much for explaining. But would you say that this stone, you said it was called stoneware, yes?
Yeah.
So would you say, for example, that the very established players in the industry, such as Wedgwood, or even France, la Cité de la Céramique, of Sèvres, do they also use stoneware? Is it the same process?
I think a lot of those use porcelain.
Porcelain.
Yeah, which
also
is a
Wedgwood?
higher firing.
Okay.
And it's so
there's terracotta, stoneware, and also porcelain. Okay.
Yeah. They're the main 3.
Okay.
That you use. You can also get like a paper clay, which is very light, and then you can get white. So there's basically earthenware clay, which terracotta falls under, and that's quite porous. But you can get a white earthenware, so it doesn't have to be terracotta. So that's earthenware. Then you get stoneware, which is often grey.
So is that made out of stone which is being grinded, and then it's just...
No, it's still clay that's found.
Okay.
I don't know why it's called stoneware or earthenware.
It's just clay, but
they act differently. Yeah,
it's collected from the earth.
Yes, and then it's processed.
Do you know where?
In some way.
In the UK?
So I was buying a clay called Staffordshire clay, so that must have been Staffordshire, and now I'm using a clay which is called Wessex mix, and Wessex is above London.
I see.
I'm not very good at my geography, but somewhere, I think it's above London, sort of Norfolk area, I think.
So basically, what prompted your choice to actually go for stoneware is because it was freely easily available in the country, so to speak.
They act differently. So earthenware is more porous, which is like with terracotta and earthenware, which is why you often see it as garden pots. It's more breathable, and you often fire earthenware and terracotta to a lower temperature, which means you use different glazes on it, because glazes react differently at different temperatures. So if you're firing to 1200, you can use different glazes that are very brightly coloured. So often terracotta will have quite brightly coloured glazes, but the higher you fire, the colour disappears from the glazes sometimes. And they kind of get sort of... I like them more. It's kind of a bit more...
What, the terracotta?
The glazes on the stoneware.
Right.
But often the colours aren't quite as bright. I mean, glazing with itself is an art form. People spend years learning what glaze recipes. And even when you have a glaze recipe, like the new blue glaze I've been using, depending where it is in the kiln and how much other things are in the kiln will determine whether it gets matter or shinier. Even though they're all the same, they can come out completely different.
Just because of the temperature in the kiln that they've been exposed to.
Yeah, because if there's more things in the kiln, the temperature will stay hotter, where if there's less in the kiln, it will cooler quicker, and the glaze will react differently. So it's a whole minefield of you think you've got the perfect glaze, and then the next time you do it, it's different.
Well, it's not the only parameter. There is also the temperature in the kiln, the can be used, the glaze, and so all this process, all this know-how in relation to the proper ceramics trade. Did you learn this when you were doing that course in London?
I learned quite a lot there, but I think when it wasn't until I got my own kiln when you can really experiment yourself.
On a day-to-day basis doing it.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. You just need to experiment. You need to try things out and make mistakes and learn from your mistakes, because you can read a book, but a bit like I said, with the variants that are there, you just need to try it. And I think
reading a book and experimenting.
Yeah, and every kiln is different as well. You can't just
How How much does one kiln can cost? I mean,
They cost about starting around 2,500 up to about 4,000, depending on the kind of size.
Well, this is something you can amortize through your accounting.
Yeah.
So, but okay, it's quite an investment though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Worthy investment for sure.
Yeah.
Just for some of our listeners who might be interested, if you would recommend it, do you mind just kindly telling the name of this place where you learn how to become a ceramist? If you think that's
I don't think it's open anymore, which is such a shame. But it was Finsbury Park College.
Right.
College, it's near Finsbury Park Station, and they do a lot of courses, and they had an amazing ceramics department with such great tutors.
Is it closed down?
I heard it was, when I left London, I heard that it was being closed down, so I don't know whether it actually did get closed.
Okay.
But I really hope it didn't, because, I mean, I would highly recommend it.
Okay.
They do evening classes, and then they did like a drop-in. So once you'd done a class and you knew what you were doing, you could just do like a drop-in Monday and just use the facilities.
Wow.
So it was really, really good. But I know they do good courses at like City Lit College in London, and you know, most towns have a good sort of pottery course.
You
to go
definitely
to.
made the most of this sort of adult learning classes that definitely maximise the whole.
I loved it. The people there were great as well. You know, to bounce ideas off, and that's the trouble now. I can be a bit solitary on my own. You know, working on my own. It's nice to.
Well, I'm sure your team is going to expand, and so you will be able to pass on the
well, that's why it's nice to do pop-ups as well, because you get feedback from. So I've just made a dish which is like in the shape of a hand.
Okay.
And I'd made it in my studio, and I was just like, I like it, but I didn't quite know what people would think of it. I was like, I'm not sure.
Yeah, because it's quite different from what you've done so
my
far.
boyfriend was like, oh, it's not really like in the keeping of your other work, because it doesn't have a face on it. But I bought it here, and everybody has been like, it's amazing, and it's sold, so that's a good sign.
Congratulations, good for you. Good for you. Sorry. Oh yes, I was wondering. So the output of your work is exquisite for sure. You have a very solid distribution channel through Etsy, 254 5 stars review on Etsy. It's fantastic. One of my other clients as well make stuffed toys. She's got a big part of her revenues coming from her Etsy shop. You also obviously have your own website, Stella Atelier Stella Ceramics.com .com, which is an e-commerce website, which is also really cutely designed and efficient. I see that you are being sold also in very highly regarded design stores such as 2021, which is my favorite design store in London. But do you want and do you need to also go to professional trade shows such as Maison et Objet and also Top Drawer in London to meet some potential distributors, agents, wholesale clients?
Yeah, I have thought about it quite a lot, but I think at the moment I feel that I wouldn't be able to make enough pots to fulfill a huge amount of orders. And I don't want to become a factory. I don't want to become, I'm churning them out. I like the idea that they're changing. You know, I do a collection, then I move on to a new collection, and that there are plenty of one-offs to be had. That they're more art pieces. I think, it's really good to have a few wholesale outlets like 2021. I also showed in the V&A Museum last year.
On 2021, you need to actually tell them off, because there is a website and there is a link to potentially your website, which is Atelier Stella, but the link is dead. So you need to tell them off, because you need to they update that URL link, please, because it's not linking to my my website. So.
Yeah, I'll definitely let them know that.
So you've got 2021. Sorry, you mentioned another name.
So in the last summer, I did a 3-month stint at the V&A museum shop.
I saw that.
Yeah,
and I wasn't a member yet, and then I was thinking about it. And I was like, and then whoop, the whole bunch. Did it sell?
Yeah, it was really good. Yeah, I sold a lot, and I think
you should, if I may. you should definitely renew that deal with the V&A if it's possible, because it really stood out. It really stood out from the other pieces.
Well, I spoke to them, and we're doing, probably can't talk about it too much, but I'm doing a little collaboration with them, which will be at Christmas.
Lovely.
So yeah, there'll be some pieces that I've made specifically for them with them. So that'll be a really nice collaboration. Yeah. So that's really good. So
yeah, they're outstanding.
I like to focus on things like that. You know, like one-off pieces, one-off things with really high regarded shops, rather than doing trade shows where I feel that I would just
but then you would have like a fantastic distribution base all over the world. I mean, people come from all over the world to Maison et Objet.
Yeah, but I think I would need to find a way of producing them through, like a small factory in the UK or something like that. It's not something that me and my assistant could do all on our own, and
Don't you think that perhaps you would be able to actually train some people to work with you? I mean, if you look, for example, at contemporary artists such as the Jeff Koons and Murakami, what's his name? Murakami, the Japanese artist. I mean, these guys seldom they don't make their own art. They have like teams of atelier. When I was actually in Chelsea district in New York, I actually bumped into some guys who were having a fag at the exit of the factory. I said, "Is that Jeff Koons?" Because I was, I said, "Murakami's that Murakami workshop." I said, "Close. It's actually Jeff Koons." I was like baffled, and so Jeff Koons has got an army of assistants who are doing, and he signs off nonetheless, and actually I was just reading my like 300 emails which are in my inbox and I was on the train from Brighton, so I was trying to catch up, and Jeff Koons' rabbit sculpture has been sold at auction just this week for $90 million. So my point is, it's not because his assistants are making his work, but his work is just going down in terms of value. Not at all. So I think that perhaps if you, sorry to say it bluntly, but if you want to get rich, it might be a good approach. I think, if I may, your pieces are adorable, and really you really have here a gold mine. Honestly, you do have a gold mine. But the problem perhaps for you to expand is in the distribution network. Yeah. And perhaps as well as still becoming the creative director, it would be also a good idea to also develop the entrepreneurial and the business approach to your venture, so that you can really start to reaping what you sow in terms of,
I think that's what I find as a hard balance, because I started the company to be creative, to be making
which you are.
things, and then I find that more and more I have to do so much more of the just running and the managing, and I think I get to a certain point and then I get a bit stressed out, and then I kind of shut it down a bit again, and because I just want to kind of do the nice little easy making of nice things bit. But so I think I just need to have a really big think of like how big I do want to get, or whether I want to keep it as a more of a one-off pieces.
Do you have an agent, someone who represents you?
No, I find that quite hard actually, with finding someone that's ceramic based. I mean, I haven't hugely looked, but
well, I mean, in his time, Picasso did a lot of ceramics, where actually potters were based in Valoris, which is the capital, the ceramics capital in France, and where Claude Aiello, this potter I was referring to, is based. So my point is that by making ceramics you can definitely make art. But I think, and of course, where he was helped is that he had a lot of dealers, he had a lot of agents, so he didn't really he only had to focus on the creative side. So maybe it's interesting.
I mean, I have started saying yes to more galleries and sort of like wholesale. There's one in Belgium now. I've just sent some work to a new concept store in Nice. So I'm kind of it's called Beau Concept.
Book concept?
In Nice,
because I have a flat.
I think it's quite new, so I'm not sure the address.
How interesting. So they're representing you down there.
Yeah, so
Okay.
I think that's good. And she ordered quite a lot of work. So
well, next time I go there, I'll definitely check it out. Concept. I think I heard about this place.
Yeah, I think it's quite new. Yeah. So yeah, I think it's good to, like you said, to kind of keep spreading the word and but being quite picky about where I choose.
Sure.
And I think the trouble with doing a trade show is that I would be, I don't want to be inundated with orders to places that maybe I don't want my work in.
No, of course.
It's a tricky one because you have to try and keep it high end, but then you don't want to be too selective.
Yeah,
because you want to have a good.
I think. Yeah, now I think the expansion could be also to perhaps go on up several continents.
Yeah.
Because you're well represented in the UK for 2021 and the V&A exposure as well, which I understand is going to be renewed in December. But perhaps other countries from Europe, but also the US could benefit from your wonderful pots.
Yeah.
So I think this is perhaps. Way would be useful to work on the distribution, selective distribution network that you could put in place, because your pieces are exquisite. The creativity and the beauty of such pieces is undisputable. But now it's how can you make it? How can you grow it to scale?
Yeah.
How can you scale it up? But I'm sure in due course you'll perhaps through a business partner or as I was saying, a representative, an agent, or someone who joins the business with a business orientation.
Yeah, I think that's what I need sometimes. I think it'd be nice that I'm just left to the creativity and that I have someone that is who's kind of like on the phone and dealing with all the stuff that I just kind of get stressed out and then
fair enough.
Bury my head in the sand with.
Never a good option.
No.
And what is fantastic is today with all the logistics that you have through, if I may ask, which do you use a particular delivery company, DHL or?
In the UK, I tend to use Royal Mail Parcel Force.
Royal, okay.
Yeah. And I also
at least these people, they don't leave your package to the neighbor and then the neighbor nicks it, which happened to me recently with something over Amazon. Yeah, I was like, never received it.
No, I always send signed for.
Yeah, exactly.
I always I mean,
you have to go and get it from a post office, but at least it's safe.
You know where it is.
Yeah, exactly.
When I started doing it, I was quite worried about adding the amount of postage. Particularly, I get a lot of orders in the US.
There you go.
Yeah,
bang.
And sometimes it's £20 postage for a pot that's 28, and it's like, but people will pay it.
They will.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they know they can't find it anywhere in a shop in the US.
I think that's the thing,
And don't they order like 5 or 6 pieces so that it makes sense?
Some people do, but then I've had people before pay as much postage for the pieces. But
that's interesting. Well, frankly, there's nothing you can do about it because I've got lots of clients who are in the US, their business in the US, and they also they do earrings, custom jewelry earrings. And exactly. When the client wants this custom jewelry from New York, they will have to pay sometimes even $30 to $40 of.
We get tax as well. New York tax.
Yeah, but I'm not surprised that you also have a big clientele in the US. I'm not surprised. What could be good is if you manage to find a distributor or an agent in the US, and then through and then he or she Anyway, I'm sure this is where perhaps the interesting strategy to scale up your business could come from.
Yeah, because I think the trouble with sending big amounts to the US is just the postage cost that needs to be added on to the wholesale price.
If you make a big batch, and you sell it to your distributor in the US, wherever he or she is based, probably there will be less custom and taxes to pay because it will be a big batch, and also it will be business to business. So probably there will be some tax loops and custom duties that you can use, and then through that big batch being sent, and then the distributor in the US just sells it retail, and then it gives you usually then you have to see whether you wanted to do it on a consignment basis or the distributor buying. Usually distributors, they actually buy the whole stock.
Right. Okay.
So you get a lot of a lot of big one-off payment. It's good for your cash flow, and then it's very business to actually distribute. The only thing is that you have to be careful that they follow your
choose
recommendations
the right
in terms of
places,
places and also prices.
Right,
you know, that you don't find it like for $5 on Amazon and stuff like that. But there's a lot of things that you can actually put into your distribution agreement to make sure that there will be some objective quality criteria in terms of how you set up the selective distribution network. So therefore, you can incentivize the distributor to sell your products in a way which is basically in a way which complies with your requirements in terms of the aura of luxury and premium that you want to, because that is something that we also discussed on when we exchange on the internet for emails, is that at the moment you are seeing a lot of cheap copies of your work. As I told you, I was at Kew Gardens, lovely Kew Gardens, last weekend, and I was surprised to see in their shop some really shitty, excuse my French, copies of so of little pots with like a nose and two eyes. So it was very basic, but it's like cheap copies of your wares, and I understand it's becoming a problem.
Yes. Yeah, I noticed the copies started probably about 4 years ago.
And are you 100% sure that it's copies of your work?
Yes, because there's no way
nobody else was doing what you were doing before.
No,
right?
I think it's the mixture of the face and the shape and
the ceramics.
The stamping around the bottom. They've even used like a triangle, a line, a dot and a square, which is what I do.
Shocking.
And I can tell by the shape of the face which photograph that they've copied from Pinterest. And I think I've counted 15 companies now copying me.
Off the record, once we finished, we can talk about this as well, because frankly I think there's lots of room for improvement here. But off the record, I think the trouble
is I've just ignored it, and then it's got worse.
But we'll come back to this after. Oh yes, if I may, in the 2021 spiel about you and your presentation of your wares, it says that you are being influenced by Swedish, Italian, and Cornish pottery from the 50s and the 60s. Would you please expand on this? Because that seems to be so specific. I was like, wow. I'd like to know more about that.
So when I was at the night course college in London, before I'd even, I was just doing this as a hobby, I always used to look on eBay for vintage pottery, and I used to really like the Bjorn Windblad ceramic head and base lady vases. They're kind of
Bjorn
Windblad,
Swedish,
I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Bjorn Windblad, probably.
Okay.
And they're kind of like a kind of chalice shape with a head, and it's what's it called? I can't remember the term now. It's not like mine at all. It's very different, but it was basically like head pots with bases on that you would put plants in. But
the Italians do that as well.
And I think I took that as an inspiration, because I kept trying to buy them on eBay, but I always would miss they were too expensive, or I couldn't.
So it's very collectible now, right?
Yeah, very collectible. But it's not pottery. It's kind of more like a ceramic shape that's made and then painted on. Painted the face, and the detail is painted onto the white ceramics.
I think yours. I'm referring to the Italian.
So I think the Italian thing is Potosí. Have you seen Potosí? So it's a very bright blue pots, and they stamp into the pots. So I think I took the stamping from the Potosí that I really liked, and then I took the faces from the Bjorn Windblad, and then I took the style of making with the very rustic clay and the kind of muted glazes from a lot of the Cornish potters like Troika that were doing kind of quite and they were doing a lot of quite rustic geometric shapes and brown glazes and sort of textural glazes. So I think those are my three separate influences that I mangled together to create the work I have now.
So what was it? Sven
Bjorn Vindblad,
Blond Villeveld,
Pitossi,
and the Cornish potters.
Yeah, I mean there's a variety of
Okay.
different Cornish sort of small pottery studios from the 60s. So yeah, I think and then also I always like Japanese, the kind of like stylish zen of the Japanese pottery with the beautiful like ikebana. So I think that influenced me as well. So I've taken a little bit from everyone and created my own style.
And it's funny how you can see all these Japanese shops actually, popping up in London, in Paris, and also online with, as you were saying, all these beautiful, very minimalistic ceramics. Sometimes even like miniature ceramics being sold on this.
Have you been to Eclectic 66 on? God, brain's not working. Not Kings Road. It's in Mayfair somewhere.
Okay, no, I have not.
Okay.
There's one in Marylebone which sells a lot of Japanese jewellery on Marylebone High Street.
Maybe
very close to the Cornish shop.
Maybe it is Marylebone High Street.
Okay. There's also another one which is called Native & Co, which is in Lovely. It doesn't only do ceramics, but a lot of Japanese products in where they have this market on Saturdays in Notting Hill. In Notting Hill, where I went and I bought a few things. And also I'm a member of the Tate Modern, and the Tate Modern, they have a lot of wonderful selection in one of their shops, and they have a lot of this Japanese miniature stoneware, stoneware, and I love it, and I bought a few from there.
Yeah, you should look up Eclectic 66. It's only Japanese ceramics, so they have a lot of like visiting exhibitions from various Japanese potters, and really nice little.
And it's true that we can see the influence in what you do, because it's always straight to the point, your designs, and with no fluffy unnecessary stuff. And I quite like, but I like these aesthetics, which is in a way, quite minimalistic.
Yeah, I think my taste at home is quite mid-century and quite minimal, so I think that reflects in
mid-century from the 20th.
Yeah, sort of like 50s. So
Eclectic
66,
and you said it was Mayfair.
It's either Mayfair, it might be Marylebone.
I wonder whether it's not that one I'm talking about. Yeah, I'll check it. I'll follow up with you on that.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So thanks for clarifying this thing, because it was like, I wonder what a mix of Cornish, Italian, and Swedish pottery refers to exactly. So now I know. Thank you. Right. So how? If I may, how do you see the business expanding now? Because you definitely have like golden goose here, and I'm saying this with all due respect, no, but seriously, these things are selling like hotcakes every time I go on the website, and I'm like, oh, this one has already gone, sold out. Why, by the way, do you keep the ones which are sold out on your website?
Because then I might add another one like later.
Batch.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, and then sometimes I take them off.
I see. And when you do a batch of one particular SUK product, is it 10 or 20, or is it an edition of how many?
It depends on the design. The small like mini pots and I probably do a batch of 10 to 14. But then the big lady vases, or the kind of more intricate ones, or the bull vases, probably only like 3 or 4 at a time.
I see. Okay, so 20. You said, sorry.
About 14 probably of the smaller ones.
And for the bigger ones, 3 to 4. Yeah. Well, that makes sense. Yeah, perhaps it's. And so, how do you see the business evolving?
I don't know. Sometimes do you know what? Sometimes I feel like I'm so busy just holding it together that I don't even have time to like think about the future or
time
the next
to draft
thing.
a business plan for the next 5 years.
Because I had no idea it would be like this. I just thought I was going to make some pots, and then I had no idea I'd end up with effectively designs that are like influencing other companies and kind of people being buying them from all over the world. So
really, do you have some like retail customers from all over the world?
Yeah.
Where are they from, for example? So you mentioned the US.
Yeah, I'd say obviously the UK is my biggest client base. Then I'd say next is the US. I did used to get a lot of orders from Australia, but I haven't had as many lately, so I'm not quite sure about that. I have quite a lot from the Scandinavian countries.
Netherlands. This is actually a fantastic homage and recognition, because these guys from Scandinavia have got such high taste.
Yeah.
So it means that, as I was saying,
I get
like,
quite a few, like Iceland and Norway,
they have
a lot from Amsterdam, from the Netherlands, particularly
Okay.
Amsterdam. I get a lot of orders from there.
Wow.
Yeah, quite a few France, Belgium, quite a few. I'd say the countries I don't get many orders from is Spain. I don't get many Spanish customers.
Okay.
Few Italian. Yeah, I think it's just taste, isn't it? Different taste.
Oh, right, okay.
I get quite a few from Russia.
Mm-hmm.
Korea.
Korea.
South Korea.
So the South Koreans have got exquisite taste as well, and the Japanese, my God, yeah.
Yeah, not so many. I've had a few to Japan, but not too many to Japan or China.
I think it's probably because they already have
they have a lot of sort of similar.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's quite interesting to see when you look at the logistics on the website where, which are your best customers.
Yeah, this is good data.
Yeah, Brazil, I get quite a few from Brazil, yeah.
This is actually quite good data, if one day you want to draft your business plan as to where you should expand in terms of your distribution channel, in which particular zones.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So you don't really have a plan in terms of...
No plan, just I think because of the copies and because I think I do want to focus on making some bigger pieces and some art pieces, and
okay,
that's as far as I've got really. So no plan, no.
But can you live out of it, of bigger pieces that you make only 3 or 4 per batch? I mean, is that something that is...
Yeah, I think as long as I'm making them alongside the pieces, then that's fine.
Yeah. I've got some ideas and some suggestions on how you could protect your products, but
because sometimes I suddenly think, I'm going to go and do an MA in craft and do some woodwork, and I just suddenly think like I'm just going to do something else.
A millionaire. It's not like making another MA. Going to study for another MA that you don't need further studying.
But then I also think
that's what I say to my client, who is actually really well on the way to become a millionaire out of stuffed toys. And so do you want to do? Did you want to make your first million? Of course you do. So just listen to me.
I know, but then I do.
She's very reasonable, and she's got a very good business mind. But I'm saying is that you don't need further studying. That's it. You've done all the studying.
But then sometimes I think when I kind of boil it down to like what makes me happy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Then I kind of suddenly then think, okay, well, it's just the nice creative making, and maybe the business side is the bit that really stresses me out. Because I don't know that I'm a creative person, I'm a maker, I'm not a business head.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is something that can be easily developed as well, because also you feel quite in control when you are also able to talk about this, to basically be on top of these things, as opposed to, as you were saying before, burying your head in the... And that's what I like about Dana, my other client, my client who is doing all his stuffed toys. She's doing all the, she's doing all the prototypes of her stuffed toys, but also... she has the business head and business mind as well. Her dad is also an entrepreneur, and also some of her brothers.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? If you've got like a family background where my parents are probably worse than me, I think they're just kind of never pushed themselves, just kind of stayed within what they were doing.
Probably employed in a kind of company.
My dad stayed at the same place for years,
I come from the same
my
family background.
Kind of just was a mum and did some floristry and, but
you can be different.
Yes, I'm trying to break the mold.
You are different. And also I wanted to congratulate you on your PR coverage, like press and communication coverage. Fantastic, because you really have some really good, you really have some good articles and blog posts about your product, and this article for the Telegraph. It's quite well spotted. You also seem to have a good mind to actually pick the good people to actually write to or dedicate time to in terms of your communication strategy. So it's really spot on.
Okay, that's good, because I don't feel like I have a strategy. I feel that things come
maybe
to
you
me
just follow your intuition, but it's spot on. That's those were the questions I wanted to.
Okay.
So thank you so much, Stella.
Thank you.
Is there anything else you would like to add?
No, I don't think so. It's been good. It's good to talk it through, because it makes you say things out loud and
well, glad.
Remember stuff.
So thank you so much for listening to Stella Baggott and myself. If you're interested in checking out the wonderful, exquisite pieces made by Stella, you can go on Atelier Stellaceramics.com, and you will have a feast for your eyes and your senses. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to our podcast Lawfully Creative, produced by Crefovi Studios. Subscribe to our podcast or catch up with our original shows on iTunes, Spotify, Deezer, Stitcher, YouTube, Anchor, and many more podcast aggregators and platforms. Please leave a review and rating about our podcast to encourage others to discover our curated content. Thank you.